Welcome, everybody, to the Concord School Board's November 1st meeting of the Capital Facilities Committee. All committee members are present: Bob Cotton, Jonathan Weinberg, Pam Walsh, and myself, and board member Kara Meeker is here as well. So, Matt, I'm just going to hand it right over to you. We have
Sounds good.
a relatively short agenda with a lot of updates and status, current status on projects that are ongoing. So,
All right.
have at
Sounds
it.
good. So we'll review the Runlet Heat update. Just we had done some work over the summer and continuing to finish up some work, so we'll talk about that. Backfill a little bit on the CHS 2025 project that we're looking forward to doing all those units. Little update on Eastman. Talk a little bit about summer projects. I think that came up the other night, so we could do that. And then just reminders of the two upcoming in relation to the middle school project, the November 15th work session and December 6th. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So heat, we're in the season. This summer we did a significant amount of work inside the boiler room at Runlet. If you remember, towards the end of the heating season last year, we had a couple of major pieces of equipment that had failed. And so the scope of work that I had asked RFS Engineering, which they did do, was to bypass some of the real complicated pieces of equipment that had failed and make revisions to it so that we could continue to operate. So that work was done by KPMB Mechanical all the way up through, and they're still there doing some minor tweaks to it. But it was a redesign, and in early October, we went through commissioning just to test out the system, make sure it was working. And when we did that, we came upon various leaks, worn out pumps, just faulty valves and actuators on the system. So as we started working away at that, we had a couple of cold days. So the building was a little bit colder on several days than we wanted it to. But we have heat in the building, the system's working. We are continually doing some work because we're also doing the building management system, also known as building automation system. We're doing that implementation with Tritium. It's a web-based platform that we're already getting training on. That too is going on. So I'm happy to say we're making good progress. The building's nice and warm, and we're going to continue to make small tweaks over the next several weeks. But we are in pretty good shape.
Just as a matter of interest, what temperature do you try to keep?
Between year-round, you try to shoot for 68 to 72 degrees in a building. 68 to 72. That's a good range that you strive for. There's a ASHRAE standard, American Association of Heating and Air Conditioning Engineers, puts out a standard that people, buildings and commercial buildings try to strive to achieve that temperature.
Good.
And I think that's a good question because as we talk about what we're planning to do with Broken Ground and Beaver Meadow, and then follow on with the high school, we're putting in dehumidified air systems where it's easier to achieve that range than what we currently have.
What is the building automation system? What are we automating?
So think of all of our schools.
Yeah.
They have a multitude of air handlers on the roof. Every room and hallway, they have temperature settings that we need to reach. So when a room gets occupied with a classroom of kids, it may tend to get a little bit warmer, so the system will adjust accordingly. It's actually a great question because it can segue into the Concord High School.
So is this like something you can manage district-wide then? Is that?
I can manage it district-wide.
It's like my Nest for the entire district?
It is. That's a very, to a very large scale. But the current system that we had to remote in. So from home, I'd have to remote in through a VPN address, and a lot of the previous system was getting outdated and no longer supported by Siemens, and that's when we decided this is a time, there's web-based programs out there where I can remote in from a phone, I can remote in, any of our head custodians can remote in and check the system. We can get notifications on the system if the building's cold, if it's, we can set whatever notifications in there. So it's really a nice thing to have when you're looking over buildings and making sure we're trying to achieve the temperatures. So, like I said, that was a good segue. We had a meeting the other night on Monday talking about the 16 new dehumidified air systems that would fully be replaced in the summer of '25. And although that's a long way away, it's a very big school, as you know, and it's a pretty complicated process. So we're going to be scheduling pre-construction scope meetings with Train, who's going to be the who's working with us on this program. That they're going to be Train air units, dehumidified air units on the roof. They will bring their engineering team in and meet with me. We'll walk the school. We'll evaluate all of the electricity, making sure that the new systems we put in are compatible with the existing electric, and if any upgrades would have to happen, we'd identify that then. Also, structural analysis, just make sure that what we're putting in meets the structural load of the building, and a mechanical review. It's interesting because everything that we've been doing over the last year with broken ground and talking about Beaver Meadow, we're right in the throes of now, so that we can do those two projects next summer. So when we have all of that work done, we submit through our office here. I submit to the state fire marshal. They get the plans. They're stamped by engineers in the various trades. They review them. They call for meetings if we need to. And then once they give the approval, we can start really drilling down on the details. How does it affect the school while the process is going on? I don't mean to get off topic, but when we talk about next summer's projects for Broken Ground and Beaver Meadow, we're going to need up to what they're saying now, about 3 weeks to switch out the electrical switchgear. So those 3 weeks, we need to
Building needs to be
fill the
empty.
power. It
Yeah.
needs to be empty.
Yeah.
So I've been working a lot with John Fabrizio and
Yeah.
Kim Yarlott, and as we look at end of year and summer school, we're looking at where can we hold those just for the summer so that we can get the crane work and all the work in the schools done.
Matt,
Yes.
question. So for the current HVAC, I know we've been having it go nonstop, and I'm not sure if that's still the
That was part of COVID.
part of COVID. So the normal life expectancy when we buy these, how long is it compared to? I know the past few years was a little unique.
They so at the 3 schools that we're talking about replacing, that equipment is at or over 30 years. Your life of that equipment can be extended a little bit more when you put them inside, like we did at our 3 elementary schools, because they're not. It's like having a new car and keeping it outside year-round versus if it was in a garage. It's easier to maintain. We're not climbing through, 3 feet of snow on the roof to change filters. It's all being done on the inside. So, does that answer for you? So, about 30 years, but that 30 years is you've got to have good routine preventive maintenance and make sure that fittings are getting changed, and if there's any belts that need to be replaced, all that fun stuff. So back to the high school project. After we get the engineered plans to the state fire marshal, there's an approval process, and then we'll start drilling down, and we'll communicate it through not just the staff, but we can do it publicly through our meetings. We'll work through a timeline, review it with the staff so that we can make plans around it. The high school's, as you know, a very busy year-round school, so that's gonna. There's going to be a lot of planning around that as well.
Yeah, yeah. So this, just to clarify for listeners, it's not like an air conditioning unit, it's just a dehumidifying unit.
Dehumidification.
So having taught for several years at Concord High, sometimes it wasn't even that it was hot in those rooms, you just felt like you were in soup. And I don't know if I can explain it any other way, but the air was like palpable.
I'm glad you, so leading up to the meeting, I wanted to introduce and talk about what we thought, Kathleen and I thought was going to be helpful. But very simply put, with the high school Broken Ground and Beaver Meadow, those are rooftop units. So whatever the ambient air is outside, we're pulling it in off the roof. It goes through a series of MERV rated filters, 8 or 13. It's just the density of the filters. Once all that ambient air comes in from the outside, and it's obviously in the summertime,
Yeah.
it gets pumped through hallways and diffusers. And so we're not, unlike the elementary schools with the dehumidified air, we're bringing that air in, but we're extracting the humidity.
Yeah.
And by doing that, it gives you the feeling of cool. And you very much notice it, and probably some of you have, when you are in Millbrook and you go to Broken Ground, or vice versa.
Yeah.
In the middle of summer, you notice a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wintertime, you're taking in the ambient air, but you have heating coils, and those heating coils are preheating at a higher temperature, about 200 degrees, those coils,
Right.
balanced with, and kind of to your point, Pam, about the building automation system, it adjusts accordingly so that we're trying to maintain that range of temperature in the school.
Right. Boy, 100 years ago, you just opened the window.
I know.
Just one other question, it has nothing to do with the HVAC process, but we are on Concord High School. Did the Ivy project go okay?
It
I
sure
witnessed
did.
it. It was fantastic.
It sure did. We had our last meeting we had up at the
Yeah.
CRTC dining room, and we talked about it,
Yeah.
and then it came down that following weekend.
So was there any significant damage that wasn't anticipated?
No, in fact, in some regards, there was a shelf along the upper D door, which is the entrance to the Concord TV.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit worried about a section, but when they were up there, they were able to take any crumbly, loose material, mortar. But what I want to do is get a lift and get up there and get a good, or binoculars, and really evaluate it with a mason so that we can
If anything needs
look
patched
at
or
repointing or
Yeah.
repatching. The roof, I think, is fine. There was just a little bit growing in under the edge.
There was a ton in the back too. I hadn't realized
There was a lot
that.
in the back. So
Yeah,
on the
in the
back side,
courtyard.
think of being in the auditorium, and if you evacuated the building out towards South Fruit Street, when you went in that little alcove in between CRTC, it was climbing all the way up.
Yeah.
So we had that removed too.
Well, good
It
job.
looks wonderful.
Good job.
And it's a maintenance thing. I mean, there was some bittersweet,
Yeah.
that had
It'll come
grown
back.
in there. So,
Right.
that's hard to get rid of.
Yeah.
But we'll be maintaining that on a regular basis.
Good, thank you.
And then lastly, about this project, like we would with any, we'll have the factory reps from Train come, and we'll do a full startup and commissioning of the system once implemented, just like we will at Broken Ground and Beaver Meadow. Anything else on the high school before we?
Where is Train? Where are they coming from? Are they in New Hampshire?
They're worldwide, yeah. The office that we deal with is out of Bedford.
Oh, okay.
But they're Train carrier. They're a worldwide organization. So I was asked to just give another update on Eastman. Just some overview. We had a meeting in May, I believe, where we showed pictures and did an overview, but I just want to talk about it again. 1936 vintage, 4.6 acres, 16,500 square feet. We had it appraised, and we shared that appraisal with you guys, I think in non-public, but it appraised in good to fair condition. The area is zoned residential. It's at 15 Shawmut Street,
Yeah.
right off exit 16. Talking with different folks that sell properties, the process could take 18 months to 2 years to, from start to finish with due diligence. The Concord Boys and Girls Club are leasing that from us, and they are in there, and they have expressed interest in seeing if we were interested in selling. So we have a meeting with the director next Tuesday. I put on here this week, that's what we were shooting for,
Yeah.
but he's not available. Jack and I were going to meet with him and then be able to come back and bring more information about what their level of interest is. And I guess what we're trying to do is start the process and see where the committee feels what the disposition of the building and what you'd like to see, and possibly have a little discussion now. And if you were to make a motion that us to move forward with it, we could bring it to the board meeting.
Well, for discussion purposes, I will move that we recommend to the full board that we sell the Eastman property.
Second.
Yeah, that makes.
I would agree with that. I think it may be a little premature to bring it to the full board. I'd like to hear how this meeting with the director of the Boys and
Okay.
Girls goes time-wise,
Okay.
timing-wise, and obviously price is an issue too. But I don't want to necessarily foreclose the possibility. I agree that we should sell it. I don't want to foreclose the possibility there might be somebody else out there too.
Do we have an obligation to offer it to the city first?
I believe there's some nuances there, so maybe the motion could be amended. I'm just thinking that the Capital Facilities Committee is in favor of moving forward to the next step for,
In favor of pursuing a sale.
Yep.
and then it will give us some time. I think we have our board meeting on Monday, and I think we are meeting with the director of Boys and Girls Club on Tuesday. So we probably won't have any.
I'd feel more comfortable if we brought it next month.
I'm happy to table it.
Yeah.
Okay.
If someone,
Because we're going to bring this to the board, but we don't have any more information than we have now to discuss.
Right.
but I think the general
Yeah,
sense is that we want
The
to move
consensus
forward.
is that we ought to.
Well, and that was
pursue-
how we felt. I remember in the spring, we discussed that.
It was.
Our discussion was the Boys and Girls Club is there and they want to buy it, but I seem to recall that perhaps they needed more time, and are we going to subsidize something until they can, there was all those in and out conversations, but I think the overriding feeling, as I recall, was that we really are ready to
Right. And I think in
encumber.
talking with Kathleen, I think we wanted to, this will be reflected in the minutes when we review on Monday, for the board meeting, so we can talk about this section that we talked about,
Yeah.
Eastman, and that might encourage a discussion, and then we can get more direction from there too, and then, does that make sense?
I would feel very comfortable if this was brought up at the full
At the
meeting on
yes.
Monday, and
we had more discussion.
that there was a sense that we ought to pursue
Right.
Okay.
unencumbering the school district of Eastman.
Yeah.
So do we need a motion for that?
No.
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think it's more.
Okay.
yes,
We just
to
make
sense-
sure we just have it on the
I'll write
agenda.
I'll write it in the minutes, so when we do the review.
I'll move that we table my motion until next month.
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Thank God it's being videotaped, because I'm trying to write who motioned it in. All right. So I think this came up, Kara, you may have mentioned it.
Yeah.
So it was a very busy summer. I think every summer we've had is very busy with a lot of different projects. So I just wanted to do a overview of the work that we had reviewed with you folks, the completion and how we did. So the Beaver Meadow School, if you remember through our previous meetings, we talked about there's a entry concrete
Oh, yeah, behind the back
ledge
there, yeah.
above. So as I started to really get into that, I wanted to pull in. So I took some initial thoughts of how we would remedy the erosion on there by stepping back and getting a structural engineer to come in and just take a deeper analysis of the condition of the concrete, because it looks like the concrete is stable, but it's a cantilevered design. And so I just think it's better to err on the side of caution. So before I started putting together a remedy for it, I wanted to get an analysis of the slab. So we're in the process of having them come out. They'll do an analysis by doing borings and all of that stuff. So we're already in that process. That's the only one of the summer projects we had talked about with the board that we did not fully complete. Once I get the results back, we'll get a design put together and a way forward, and then naturally I'd present that to you both at a school board meeting and a future capital facilities committee meeting, just as an update. But the other projects we did a pretty extensive drainage repair at Christa McAuliffe. Pam, you probably know, a walking path right along. We put in new drainage structures. We put a fence and some arborvitae trees and to help discourage the usage of that path. But we reestablished drainage in there, and we fixed up the swale on the sidewalks. And I'll tell you, the real test of time was the week after that happened. We had a very significant rainfall, and it was on a Sunday, and I ran from Laconia down here just to see, and it was operating fine.
Yeah.
That was a good
You're
feeling.
a real hero.
Yeah, that's been a nightmare.
Yeah.
They don't call it
That
Spring
was-
Street for
That was a
nothing.
little bit of a nail biter, but it was one of the best tests to make sure
Yeah.
that it functioned properly.
And it held up. I mean, it was a really rainy year.
It was
so
extremely
held
rainy.
Up,
Yeah.
Held up okay. Yeah.
It did, and still has. So we're very happy with that. Runlet Middle School, I know we have that process that we're looking at moving ahead with the middle school, but we still have things in there that we have to do. We did a lot of floor patching. You probably recall from being in there was missing floor tile, chipped floor tile. So we did work with the flooring company to go and identify those areas and seam in new VCT tile, the vinyl tile in those areas. The heat plant design that we just talked about was another project we did for summer projects. We also did room 503. It's with student services. It's a classroom at Runlet where we're teaching life skills to kids. So we brighten it up. We put new appliances in there. And we were able to really upgrade the lighting, and we just gave it a nice facelift. I wished I had brought pictures of that to show tonight, because it really came out nice, and it really improved the environment for the students and the staff in there. It was a little thing, but it was part of the summer project list that we added. We put a fabric screen around the dumpster fence up at the high school. We were getting some feedback that was irritating to some, so we took care of that. We did replace the window above CRTC. And I want to talk about that for a minute. When doing that, once we got to taking the full entire window section out, there was some rotted wood and damage underneath it. So luckily we had all the right staff working, the contractors, so we were able to rebuild that and then put it in and make it weather tight. So that came out good. The CRTC break room and conference room, the dining room that some of you have seen already, we had a grand opening last week that went really well. And we converted the business classroom. I think it's 3088 at the high school.
Classroom, yeah.
Yeah, and I created a office within the space because that's what the program was looking for. We got a digital. This was all paid mostly out of CRTC monies, but it was a fun project. We have a digital rolling ticker tape, if you will, because it's all business related, so they can put the stock market on, and it just helps enhance that experience, which is nice. And I'm thinking when we do the holiday dinner, we could probably take some time before or after, and we could do a quick little tour. I think you'd like it. We, just as a refresher, we did some landscaping cleanup around the whole entire district that really helped out when we got into full swing of summer. And we did painting throughout the district, so including this boardroom area as well. And then finally, we did a steam trap replacement, which was pretty invasive, and it was at Eastman School. We had to cut out a rotted section that was directly in line with the boiler and the return lines to the for the heating system. So we were able to accomplish that over the summer. So summer's always about an 8-week stretch, but we got a lot done. A lot of the planning too, by the way, we start doing right around the budget time when we come and we present. We're starting to get estimates, then we go out for formal bid, and then we schedule the work. So there's an awful lot of behind the scenes project work to get the 8 weeks covered, to get a lot of work done. And the last thing I just wanted to remind everyone, we'll say it again at the upcoming school board meeting, November 15th, we have a board work session. The second one that we'll have with the architects. They were able to go back. They're working on cost estimates. They took a lot of feedback and got some more answers. We have traffic studies going on. They'll be bringing forward some information for both locations. That will be on November 15th in the boardroom at 5:30. And then on December 6th, we have the special board meeting at 5:30 in this room as well. And that would be, as we have been talking about, the time when we want to make the decision on the location.
Can't wait.
So that we could move forward with the middle school project.
So is the proposal not to have a general meeting on the 4th, or to have it on the 4th and the 6th?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, both.
Both.
Right.
Just so that we have one meeting where we can vote
Gotcha.
just to the middle school and
Right.
not do it as,
Part of a meeting that will now be 5 hours long.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That's cool. Just checking my calendar.
But that's a good point. People can come and speak to us at the
Right, they
December
can come
4th
on the
meeting
4th.
as
Right.
well.
Correct,
Prior to the
Right.
6th. Okay.
correct.
So just one other
Sure.
unrelated question for you, Matt. How are you feeling about staffing for capital facility stuff? I mean, specifically like custodians and that sort of thing. Are you
We're
fully staffed or?
No,
No?
we're not. I'm glad you brought that up. We're understaffed. At one of our elementaries, we don't have a second shift, so to make up for that, at Broken Ground, we're utilizing the 2 people we have next door at Millbrook, and we're getting about 4 hours or sometimes overtime. The head custodian will work over there to try to keep up. So we're very tight over there. Abbott Downing School, we're down 1 night custodian, and we're typically staffed for 2. Krista McCullough is fully staffed, and Beaver Meadow are fully staffed, but we're having to offer overtime and exercise overtime throughout the schools to try to make up for lost time. I mean, people have vacations, they get sick, and we have been working tirelessly trying to get help, just getting people to apply. So it's tight. We're short-staffed at the middle school, and we're also short-staffed at the high school. And you know that we're very busy with after-hours activities, weekend events, sporting events, plays. So it's pretty rugged.
So it's challenging, but is it manageable?
Well, we're managing through it,
Yeah.
but I do honestly feel like it's taken a toll on everybody. It's
Yeah, there are some custodians that feel exhausted and
They are.
overwhelmed.
They are.
Yeah.
It's because, we're still offering all of what we offer, not just during the day, but at nights. And, that's what we do. So it is getting challenging. We've had to try to be creative and try to spread and share our existing folks that are working for us, share them around to other schools. And they have been very receptive and very helpful in doing that. We had a head custodian go out on vacation the first 2 days of this week, and we were able to, with the help of the high school, have a second shift custodian come in at 6 a.m. and work the entire day. But I'm not going to kid you. It's tough. It's very tough.
Okay, thanks.
What about there was an assistant facilities manager
Yes.
position that was added to the budget? Have you had
Correct.
success in hiring for that?
I have not hired yet, but I am talking with someone who I'm very interested in. And so I plan on having that person come back next week and want to have him meet other folks in the district that they would be working more directly with. But I have a good feel, very good references. And I can tell you, getting 4 or 5 phone calls over the weekend, whether it was burglary alarms or false fire alarms or whatever, I could definitely welcome the help.
You
So
got a little strain too? Yeah.
it's manageable, but it will be nice to be able to, focus on a lot of big picture stuff like these upcoming projects, the middle school, and that sort of thing. So
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Sure. And I guess with that, I don't have anything else, but I'm happy to answer or entertain any other questions.
No, I think we have a lot on our plate coming up.
We do. We do.
So, does anyone else have anything?
No, I mean, the reason I brought up summer projects at the last meeting and just thinking about you, and because I remember during the last budget process, you have this like growing list of projects that,
We do.
That add up to a lot of money over time, but maybe as a single project is not that big of a budgetary item. And since we did pretty well in terms of what we got from the state and everything, that if there was like something you could throw back on that list that you wish you could have gotten done this year that maybe now you can, I wanted to give you space to bring that up. If
Sure,
there
sure.
were small projects that you even had the time or staff.
We-
I mean, we were just talking about not having enough staff, so.
Yeah. We had about 12, when everything landed and all projects were completed on that list, we were about $12,000 to the good. That I was able to put towards the engineering and looking at the concrete slab at Broken Ground. We were able to do a couple of smaller little things. But to get to your point, and there's a large capital improvement plan, a 10-year plan that I review every year with the board, and there's a lot of things on there. A very, very big thing. I can't tell you what a welcome relief that you folks are supportive that we can upgrade our air handling systems.
Yeah, it's way up.
That's huge. 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 now, we did some major roofing upgrades to the high school in Broken Ground. We'll come back with another list that will be on that capital improvement plan that dovetails in with our strategic plan. And, you see the effect of deferred maintenance over time.
Right.
And there were times where I had about maybe 250,000 or 230,000 to utilize throughout an entire over 1 million square feet of bricks and mortar. That's difficult to do. So you have to really choose your priorities carefully and then present them to the board for what.
I think I would be interested as we get into the budget and you start thinking about your summer project list to see sort of tiers. And what's realistic and what's not, because we don't want to budget money that you don't have the staff
Right.
to use.
Right.
But, you know, if you sort of did a tier of, if this is what we spent last year plus,
Sure.
you know, and then here's the next bunch, I think that would be a helpful thing for the board to understand, and seeing the whole list is also.
It sure is. Yeah, no, I think we can do that. When you started saying that, I started instantly thinking over the last couple of years, this isn't an overnight thing, that we've had some labor shortages.
Yep.
And one of the first things you see, it's hard to see it in the wintertime, but you see it right through spring, and we really try to maintain our storefronts, our outside areas. And so I was very appreciative that we could put at least that spring cleaning in. But I think I'm going to be needing to talk to the board about continuing with landscaping and some help, because we have 5 maintenance people and 2 almost 3 days a week, and it's dictated by rain. We have to maintain and mow our lawns, and sometimes it's a very difficult task to try to achieve, to make everything in sports fields look good when you simply have other jobs and emergencies that have to be attended to. So that's something we could talk more about.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
For summer projects, do we recruit from the building trade students at the CRTC, you know, or offer internships or apprenticeships to them?
We haven't, but we have had high school students over the years help. We got creative this summer, and we offered food service who doesn't work during the summer. We offered it up to transportation. We weren't able to get any people from transportation, but we were able to get some food service folks just to backfill and help out in our schools for custodian work. So,
Yeah, I was thinking more the summer maintenance projects, you know, it might be, you know, a place to go.
That's
Or
good.
It's too bad we didn't have like a landscaping.
I think that's a great
horticulture.
idea. You know, the other thing that I know we've talked about having to use some snow plowing, non-employees, you know, to do some of that, and you know, if we have to do that with mowing and things like that
that's
too, then you know, we ought to get on that earlier and try to get those people
absolutely.
lined up.
Absolutely. We work with our snowplow contractor, and I've been talking with Jack and Kathleen. We're shorthanded, and we're focused on cleaning on the inside of the buildings.
Right.
But a snow day, a delay, or just inclement weather, you still need to have those schools ready. So we're going to be meeting tomorrow, actually, with our snowplow contractor to help when we get into those tough situations this current winter season, how we can manage through them and still create a safe.
Well, I think your custodial staff does an awesome job.
So
Mr.
do
Wayne over at Kristen McAuliffe is so wonderful with all of the kids and has saved my butt several times when I have lost the screw of the popcorn machine in the popcorn. So we put it back together.
Yeah.
Come to your rescue.
That's a good find. No, they are good. I cannot say enough about the staff. I can't do it without them. There's no way. And they continually, and it's not just the custodians, it's also our maintenance folks. We brought on a plumber last spring, and the amount of work he's done since he's been here, we would have had to get done
Yep.
from the outside.
Right.
They're saving us money by what they're doing.
Sure.
And it's huge. Huge. So.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anyone opposed? I didn't think so. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Bob, did you second?
I did second.